21st. We are on the East Coast, and we are actually in Orlando, Florida. I am your Happy Healer lover, Keith Landy, and it's great to see you this wonderful day on Wednesday. Now, don't forget, on this coming Friday, which is the 23rd, we have a special on Meet Kevin Paffrath for the state of California. He wants to be governor. He's a Democrat, and the guy is filled with greed beyond an acceptable measure, and that's keeping it a lowered expectation for what anyone would accept. The guy is overdriven, overambitious, and willing to put himself in whatever predicament. I mean, he honestly makes a clown out of himself for the greed that he represents. And I don't think he recognizes it. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people, when they're out of clue on this, they don't necessarily recognize it. And yet this greed, this ambition, this unchecked ambition, it has consequences. And let's think about those consequences. That's what this coming Friday, this special Unchecked Greed series, that's what it is all about. Keep in mind, we just had the Champagne Towers down there in southern, or I believe it's Champagne, but they down there in southern Florida, South Florida, fall. And I've been looking into the reason why that fell. Now, you know what I'm talking about, right? I'll pull it up here. This is a picture, and it's the Surfside condo building collapse. And I could show you a little bit right there so you know what I'm talking about. If you recall this was all over the news. And what we're learning is that the building wasn't put together right. They weren't following the standards. Of course, now standards have changed since that building was erected back in 1970 something or 80, is around that time. And so the building's only 40 years old. They do say that age could have had some implication into why it fell, but more than anything, it's just lack of maintenance, lack of care, taking shortcuts, filling out the paperwork, all the right smiles, all the right handshakes, all the right necessary filings, but at the end of the day, it wasn't safe. No, it couldn't handle even the support of its own weight. Do you know what it takes to knock a building down? Go look at World War II and see all the bombings and how half walls and buildings are still standing. And no matter all of that, constant barrage, those buildings would stand and take so much abuse. And I just want to say for a moment that make sure that everybody's hearing okay. Looks like things are quite well. And I do want to say also, God bless you, right off the bat within the first few minutes here. The time is 7:02. We come on sharp Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Rain or shine, we'll be here. You can count on that, because there is so much going on in this world, and you have to have a loving partner that you can count on. I want to be that loving partner to you, your Happy Healer lover. I want to be able to see and feel your presence. I am looking at you now, and I want to be able to tell you the truth of what's going on. I want to be able to turn the camera and say, look at that, fellow lovers. Look what's happening. And I want our community to continue to grow. If you're in the community, you know how special it is. And our motto is keeping it truthful and keeping it loving. Honest love. That is so important, because that's what gets us to the qualities of our Creator. So back to the Surfside building. They weren't doing the proper maintenance. They were setting aside some millions of dollars to take care of maintenance they had only just begun on. And I was looking into like the deeper elements of professional breakdown of what went wrong. And you'll see these punch-through beams where they weren't using enough rebar in order to keep the columns, in some cases, safe. They had so many in there, in some cases it was not enough. In other cases it was just designed poorly. And I think that's safe to say. Of course, there has not been a full investigation on this, and I would always say let's err on the side of caution and be careful with our language. But think about the number of people who died, and we're pointing at the damage that greed hell does, because love cares enough to get this stuff done. And remember, you might get a little bit confused by what I mean exactly, and not everybody, because a lot of people know the difference, but especially if you're new. What I mean by when I say the power in the energy of love, that is the energy of God Almighty, and then the power in the energy of greed, that is the force and the energy of the devil. And that's not to say that people who have ever been guilty of doing greed are any different from anybody else, because to a large degree, there's a lot of people doing greed, and that's why we live in the world of greed hell. The war between God and man is God and the devil is happening in man, and it's a war for our soul. And I think you guys would appreciate to know that if you weren't aware, some of you might not be aware, most of you probably, and I'm certain to say are, and that is that this war that's taking place inside for the human soul, you don't get to see it on the outside like conventional wars. In some cases you do when it translates, and when I say translates, I mean that which is on the inside of humanity comes outward. And what we see a lot of in greed hell, we see the translation of wars like World War II, World War I. We've seen the Korean War. My father fought in the Korean War. And by golly, all the veterans that are here, God bless you. One of the future people we'll be talking about on the Unchecked Greed series, his name, and he's right here in Orlando, Florida, Neil Paulson. And this guy ran for so many different government seats. These are the wrong kinds of people running for office, by the way. We need lovers running for office. He ran for mayor right here in Orlando, so he's not a nobody. Now, he would call, and he paid one of those robocalls agencies. You know them, the telemarketers. You get them every day. And what he did is he got on the phone and he, contracted these folks that they would get on the phone with people and find out who the veterans are and convince those veterans to donate to his nonprofit cause for veterans, of which at the end of the day they determined he didn't do anything more than a couple of meals for some friends who are veterans, of which he was claiming was his work he had done. Now, the question might be, well, Keith, how much money did this guy bring in, this unchecked greed Neil Paulson fraud? Are you saying that because he brought in a couple $100 now he's a bad guy? Let me tell you something. When you aim your greed missiles at veterans who have fought for our freedom, and then you take, it doesn't matter what you take, it's wrong. And I have personal experiences with this guy. Yeah, he ran for all these different things, but I know Neil Paulson, just like I know Meaty McGreedy, Kevin Paffrath, who's running for governor in the state of California. And let me tell you, Neil Paulson, he didn't take no small amount. We're not talking about $100 here or there. The guy took $20 million from veterans. Now, I want you to think about that. Pause for a moment. $20 million he stole from veterans. Enough money that could have gotten the towers in Florida that fell here in South Florida to be fixed. I mean, think about that. Such a massive amount of money. And this is taking advantage of a vulnerable crowd who have been through war, and they're just looking for better times. They understand that we need to take care of each other. And what happens is when you have these fraudulent people, they come into the humdrum, the human humdrum. That's what I call it when you're coming out and you're trying to make a public stance. When I'm talking to people in a human humdrum, it's talking to our combined spirit. And that's where he goes to our combined spirit, and he requests money so that he says he could do good, and we expect him to do good. And then for him to instead to pocket that money and to do things for himself and to buy real estate, to enrich himself and things like this, that is the kind of thing that is killing our country. And that's what the Unchecked Greed series is all about. So take a moment and think about what damage someone like Neil Paulson can do to people who put trust out and give to these kinds of causes. and then they learned they were taken advantage of. Are they going to be ready to give again? If you were her and somebody misused your trust, and then someone else who is actually honest and up to good work was looking for your support, would you be less trusting or more trusting because of having dealt with Neil Paulson? I would say less. $20 million is no small amount. And so he'll be the next one up on Unchecked Greed, this special series we have. However, we have a lot more work to do with our good friend out there in California. He's a young guy, he's running after it, and he's just knocking over everything like a bull in a china class. He's just killing everything, and he doesn't care. He just knocks things over and keeps going because he matters more than you do. And that's the attitude of some of these smug people who do that. And they're not out for making a better world. They're out for making themselves more powerful. And they're not out for holding themselves accountable. No. They're out for holding everybody else accountable to their riches. So they have to be called out because nobody's calling them out. What they do is essentially legal mostly. Now, of course, what Neil Paulson did, he got in trouble for it, but not that much trouble. Stealing $20 million from veterans. He's free today. Free to continue stealing from people. He stole from your HappyHealer lover too. So that's how I know. I've dealt with so many. I don't know if it's what it is, but I happen to have rubbed elbows with some unsavory characters. And maybe I do believe these strong forces exist. And when someone's so close to God, and this could be happening to you too, and maybe you can relate, but when someone's so close to God, they end up having these evil forces chase after them. Now, I'm in Happy Force Mini. We're right outside of a Walmart right here, and maybe I'll give you a chance. We'll actually let you see in the around the area here. But right out, you could see right down the road, there's downtown Orlando. Right behind me is the Walmart. The Walmart I used to shop at when I owned my house that wasn't too far from here. Now, of course, for those of you who understand the story, how it's been progressing, you know that I've sold my house. And why did I sell my house? To go on this special journey of doing human work. Why? Because I'm a 42-year-old happy healer lover who loves you and is only alive to serve you. And that's what I think service is about. I am fully and completely committed to making a better world, to educating people, to loving people, and to being a humble servant of our Almighty God, the Creator of all, and to realize that we have to have a steady approach in that endeavor, and we have to give all of ourselves to Jesus Christ, and we have to recognize that He is our Savior, and to recognize that in doing that, how do we best put to practices the core elements of Jesus Christ is to put to practice love. And that's what Jesus is about. Love and forgiving people for their trespasses. These are so commonly spoke about, so little followed. But yet, if you really get down to it, they're the rules of love and truth. And if we were to get to these kinds of things more often, like to even a fault, it would be the perfect order for the world, and that would be God's world. And to live in such a way is an honorable way of living. I don't think it would be unbecoming of an entire nation to live in such a way, especially when the alternative is doing what Neil Paulson does, stealing $20 million from veterans and having it be okay, especially when the alternative is doing what Kevin Paffrath out of California does, which is to continuously take in every aspect he can from viewers who loves him. In fact, this is going to be such a great program that's coming up on Friday. We're going to show you the various people that put trust in him and how he responds to that. We're going to show you other people who do things in a more upstanding way and compare that to what Kevin is doing. And then we're going to look and pull back and see, well, a lot of people respect Kevin. Think about that. A lot of people know Kevin. He's got 1.67 million followers. And why are so many people giving accolades and trust and their money to somebody who's not truly looking out for them. And that's really concerning for me. A lot of people going the way of greed hell, respecting those virtues, saying, yeah, that's the right way to go. I was a little confused before, but what that man is teaching, Kevin Paffrath, oh yeah, that's the way I want to go too. Because Kevin flashes his money around and says, look what I have. If you want it, you too can have that if you just invest in my programs. Well, you get to investing in his programs, you realize this is like investing in anything else you've ever invested in. It's like investing in a home. I mean, my goodness, even more. It's more than buying a mortgage. It's more than a mortgage payment. We're talking several mortgage payments, and this guy charges it all day long. People trust him because, well, he's built it up like that. He's made it his goal, not like your happy healer lover coming out in a way of service and knowing that, yes, we err, but to be humble and to get it right for God and to get it right for each other. Sometimes that's not the most popular thing to do. People are more eager to do something that's more self-enriching. Forget about what's good for all of us. Help me only, just me. And Kevin caters to that audience. He teaches people to be more like that. And that people, when they become like that, they turn around and give Kevin the credit for anything that goes right. And for the things that go wrong in their lives, Kevin blocks them off. You're out. You're blocked out. What? You bought my course and it didn't work out so well for you. Sorry, tough luck, kid. You're out. You don't get a chance to complain. You think you're allowed to complain? No. You're allowed to buy the course, and if you succeed, it's because of me. And if you fail, you're blocked, because Lord knows you're going to have a lot of complaints with all the promises I made. And that's how Kevin does it. Is that right to do? But yet people continuously give him accolades. And how does he get away with that in such an open world? Well, it turns out that this greedy world caters to that kind of way. He has the ability written right in the tools and functions he uses. So do I. I can block anybody. You say something I don't agree, block, goodbye. I don't do it because it's not transparent. And then the worst thing is he claims transparency while doing this. But you see, not with your happy healer lover, because I'm going to show the truth on that. And it's really important too, because the guy, he wants to do public service, but he's not about public service. He's going to be another one of these condescending candidates who turn out to not serve the people, but to serve themselves. He'll be part of the swamp that we're already trying to get rid of, essentially. We don't need more of that. We've had enough of that. It's time to turn the page on that. That's why we voted Donald Trump in. That's why I voted Donald Trump in, is because I wanted somebody who was angry, who was going to fight him, who was going to stand up, who had that strong heart, and who loved America. They said he didn't love America, but I knew it was a lie. I put it aside. Is it okay for us to hear something that people who that are put in a position of power and say that they represent this, that we should listen to them, that somehow they have the right ideas? Should we listen when they tell us that Donald Trump is an awful racist? He doesn't love America, he's out to destroy America, and he's a puppet of Putin? Should we believe that? No, not at all. That's a big fat lie. And these guys, they have no couth at all. They'll lie in a moment. Well, for one, they're godless. They don't believe in God. There's no consequence to lying. You can live a life of greed and taking and murderous hell. When you believe there's no God, you're set free to do whatever hell you want to, because your only life then is on this earth, and you're out to take. And it's a greedy message. It's not even in the human heart to be that way. It's unnatural. But this is what the devil tries to put out. And we have to be aware of that. We have to be cognizant of it. Please, if you get anything, understand that, my fellow Americans, my fellow lovers, and I love you so much. Just understand how much you are worth in this life. They will sell your worth so cheap. Don't you let them. because they will do it, and I've seen them do it over and over and over again. I remember when I was just a child. I remember when my piercing blue eyes were looking up at my mommy. I didn't understand the world that much, and I learned, and I was naive, but I believed in love, and that's what humanity is about. I believed in passion. I was so excited about this greater world, what's possible, and to learn all of the disgust, to learn that there were people out there that wanted to hurt me despite my heart and my love and help wanting to see them through. That for them, it was never about that. It was about a brief interaction where they could take from as many that they could take from and to move on. But realize this, that's always a deadly path. Have you ever heard of a guy named Don LaPree? He's another one of these Neil Paulson types. He's another one of these Kevin Path Wrath piece of crap types. And, Don LaPree, he would, and I'll do a little bit of an impersonation with him because I'm kind of good at that. And what he'll do is he'll get on TV and he'll say, if you place just one classified ad in a newspaper, then what you could do, essentially, you can make yourself a millionaire off of placing these one classified ads in newspapers all over the place. I'll show you how to do it. I'll walk you through it, every single one of these classified ads, and I'll show you the interworkings, and then afterwards you just duplicate it many times and you become a millionaire. What do you think ever became of Don LaPree? Now, I know you know of him. He was big in the 90s. He would come on the infomercials. Don LaPree has passed on from this earth. What was his fate? He hung himself in a jail. Because you see, when you run by the rules of greed hell, it might work for you for some time. But when you fall hard. And nobody's catching you. And in fact, they're stabbing you on the way down. There's no safe haven for you. And because greed hell loves doing these class warfares, as you fall, you're falling past these other classes who are now above you. And they never forget how you treated them when you were above them. That's what happened to Don LaPree. So he went to jail. His corruption caught up with him, and he went to prison. He couldn't handle it, and he killed himself. I feel bad about that. He actually killed himself. He strangled himself in prison. And even though he did a lot of bad to some... In fact, I was a young guy. This goes back to, I'm 42 years old now. That's back when I was around 18, 19. I got this credit card because there were these traveling salesmen of Kirby vacuum cleaners, and they had this racket going where they somehow had an in with a credit card company, and they would get just basically anybody approved with a credit card. I had no job, I had no means, I had no way. They sold me a $4,000 vacuum cleaner and provided me a credit card that after the vacuum cleaner itself was paid for on the credit card, then there was like another $500 additional that I could spend how I wanted. So it felt very enticing. Now, I was smart enough at that age to realize it wasn't a good idea, though I had my brother and my mother who was thinking it was a good idea. They wanted the vacuum cleaner. They were sold on it. And I'm always down for what my mom wants because I'm a good mama's boy. And so I got it. And my brother wanted it. And so I got it. And, do you think that was the right thing for them to do? To sell an 18-year-old a $4,000 Kirby vacuum cleaner just starting out in life? Nah, it didn't bother them. It didn't bother them whether it could be afforded or not. The idea was to take. And there's a lot of this going on in society. It's not serving society. And they had the in with the credit card company already. Why is the credit card processing that? They wouldn't give me the $4,500 limit if I myself was seeking it. For example, when my father died around the same time, and we were trying to get our family together in Michigan, that was back in 1998, there was no credit card company swooping in saying, we'll help you. In fact, I remember at that young age, I was calling the credit cards that I did have. asking for increases in my credit limit because my family was poverty stricken. We were homeless when I first started working for, and you might know it, one store is sitting right there, and that's Boston Market. They serve rotisserie style chicken, turkey, and they also serve honey baked ham and meatloaf, so delicious, 20 different side items. And that was my first professional job. And you learn so much going through this life. I remember when I first got that job, it was because my family was homeless. Now, it wasn't the first time we were homeless. It was just a reoccurring thing for us. Between that and when we did have a home, not having electricity, times were tough. And I was just a boy growing into a teenager. And I remember that the choice was simple: to either be homeless or get a job and help my family get off the streets. I decided to get a job, and it was Boston Market that was my first job, and I started off there working for minimum wage. So humble. And I'll show you through this process in AmericanMantics and all of this that we're putting into focus, I must show you this history because it gives you more insight on why I am the way I am. It's the irony of it all. It's how it all happened. There's a history to everything. And sometimes it takes understanding that history to fully appreciate the gift that your Happy Healer lover is always out to deliver. And that's more understanding, more love, more compassion, more care, bringing out the truth, rolling it out, and saying, folks, let's go ahead and let the lies subside. We all have them. We're protecting ourselves in all various ways. But that's not the way this world and this life is meant to be lived when you do it with love. It's meant to be lived in a way of trust and care. And the thing about it is, if you do trust and care, you'll be naive the way I was. You'll be signing on for credit cards. You'll be signing up to Kevin Paffrath's course, Learning to Be a Greedy Bastard. You'll be giving your money to Neil Paulson so he could steal from the veterans. That's what's out there. That's what's trying to eat us up. No, just me, such a naive child coming into my own. But I knew we couldn't live on the street, so I took every effort. And what was really hard for me is over time is seeing in the many ways that people that I loved, that I love all, first off. And, maybe there's some people that might not like me, and that's up to them. And even for people that hate me, I love them back. That's all I'll ever do is I'll love them back. I will love them as hard as I can because I realize how short this life is. And I realize just how much hate there's going out there, and I don't want to add to that. And I've seen the pain and suffering that the petty things aren't going to hold me back. I don't hold grudges. I want to make progress, and I want that process to be fluid. I want it to be fast. I want to make fast progress. And I can't allow little things to get in the way of that. That's why God says be a humble lover, not to get caught up into this pride and ego-driven world that's trying to take us over. Now, can you be ambitious in life? Well, in the Happy Healer, we want to be so ambitious. We want to accomplish a lot. Is that even okay? Or are we serving the devil when we do that? No, you're free to be ambitious. Look how hard I push, and I will never stop pushing. This is my life, and I'm a 42-year-old man, and I'm not without my problems. I have a bad back, and I didn't get into the story yet. I can't tell you all the things that happened because I don't want to skip it. This is so important to tell you in a chronological order of events. But I have struggles. Does that stop me from doing what I'm doing? Not at all. I'll continue fighting hard for you. Do you see your happy healer right here and right now, and staying consistent and staying whole in the fight and the battle, knowing what the right thing to do is at the right time when it was time to put aside any kind of thought of, oh, well, they're saying that Donald Trump is this or that or the other. I didn't listen to those lies. I knew. The happy healer in me knew that he was the right guy for the job, and that in fact, had Hillary Clinton got in, we would have been screwed. And I know you know what I mean. I mean, to say that I was genuinely worried is an understatement about Hillary Clinton's candidacy for president. In fact, I had already seen her in action, and I seen the way she treats people. I seen how quickly, with a smile, she could destroy a life and move on. I know that danger. And folks, people, they're like, you ever see that movie with Rowdy Roddy Piper? They Live, I think it's called, and, I'm all out of bubblegum. Because I only do two things. I kick butt and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum, right? And what was the point behind that? There were these masks that people wore. They were being something other than who they truly were, and the good guys were believing them, but really they were these awful monsters. And you see a lot of that in society, and that's what I've seen in Hillary, where she would, yes, that's what we need. Kids matter so much, only to do what are not good for families and kids, essentially. But that didn't matter, because she said it with a smile, and she convinced a large number of people. That is scary, and that's why when we're close to God, we have to be close to the truth. And remember, as people that love God and represent God, we're representing. And when we allow ourselves to tell a lie, and you always know when somebody's lying, even if you don't call them out on it. You always know when they're bending the truth. And when, as someone who's representing God, bends the truth, what you're doing is you're causing people to lose faith in the power of God, and the truth. That people that say they love God, well, if they lie, my goodness, what have we come to, and how can we trust then? But when we keep our voices honest, then our voices take on a new strength, and the work we can do is so much more effective. Yeah, it might feel good to say a fib or two when you want to make a point and just squeeze it into the guy who you know is wrong, but it's much better to do the way of Jesus, to turn the other cheek, to do the way of love, and to say with humility the truth, and to stick close to God with the truth, and to allow that to work for you, to build up your world. You'll never look back, and you'll always feel like you've got this strong, enveloping presence of goodness around you. The light follows you when you keep yourself within the light. And so that's often what I talk about having a better world is so important for, because you can get your own act in order, but other people who are still serving the devil, all right, we'll give them this much. It's not that they're out there willingly do it. In fact, one of the devil's greatest advantages, coming up next, is the fact that a large number of people mock the very idea that there's this fake, like a cartoon devil, with big horns. They mock. And it's not true. There is a devil. The devil's greatest gift, his greatest advantage, is that people don't even believe he exists, and that they make a mockery out of it. That's because they have no faith in God either. But they're wrong. And the devil is many things, but it's certainly not going to be what you've seen in a cartoon. Maybe it manifests himself in what you believe him to look like in some ways when you're being attacked, Because remember, in greed hell, it's about greed and fear. So it's always about getting you in fear and getting you in line, and then enticing you with greed and bribes to get you to do the hell that greed hell wants you to do. But with love and truth, you're automatically having value. You don't have to fight for that like you do in greed hell. And you won't feel the fear that any dark entities can bring. And so what happens is, because we're in greed hell and this problem is massive and it's a massive war we must win, then that other people who are susceptible end up getting attacked by this greed or by this evil, that they've always been in it in some way, and that it affects your life because of it. That's why we're in this together. You can't be alone and fight this war. It's a war of truth, and it's really an information war, a term so commonly used to describe what's happening, and it's been happening since the dawn of man. And yet, the year is 2021. Our communications and advantages have never been better, and we're still struggling with it. It must be because we're getting something wrong. And that's what this story is about. That's why we voted for Donald Trump, because we wanted a fighter who wasn't going to be fearful. Remember, you know the fearful ones, because they give in right away. They talked about one thing, they get there and they do another. Those are the scaredy cats. And they're always out to fear monger and fight you in whatever way they can get into your mind, and to really scare you to the point where they control you. That's always what they're about. But you can't let them do that. The moment they have that control over you, they control your life, and they control everybody else's lives too. And worse, they control the people's lives who you love. Remember in episode 1 or 2 it was, that we were talking about, imagine what it's like watching the people you love from a distance, like say on TV, but it's real life, and you see things happening that are bad. What you would do to intervene if only you could, for the goodness of this person, but that you're on the other side of a veil. Remember that? That's what we're up to. The good that we can do for the people that we care about, to change the fortunes that are happening on the daily by the moment. And it's up to us to do that good work, because nobody else is doing it for us. One thing about doing God's work is it's a bottom-up movement, because all those pastors driving Bugattis and Lamborghinis will never get the job done. They're not going to take you to the promised land, doing greed hell as hard as they can themselves, but telling you how to love God. They're really brilliant in their approach, I will say, but they lose in their honest default when it comes to being lovers and givers. And it's not even for the really greedy, I'm talking about these TV preachers who are raking in the millions. You know who I'm talking about, but the thing is we can do better. And the way we do better is by being selfless. And when people are thinking about self-enrichment, they're not thinking about service. And if you put service and passion front and foremost, I don't think there's anything wrong with others enriching you. But remember, that is on their own prerogative, right? Others enriching you, but not for you to go out holding back and trying to take from people or to squeeze their arms. That's not how you teach about love. Love is a gift. That's why I told you from the beginning, if this were a course, it would be worth enough to buy a home with in greed hell, because of how powerful it is. And you have such insight on the energies and what's happening and what's going to happen next. That's why I knew Donald Trump was the right guy for the job. when I voted for Donald Trump in 2016. And all my family did at that same time too, because we spoke about it and we know what's important. And we're not people that are rich or we're doing well by the things that, the tax cuts are motivating us to, no. We're lovers. We care, and we want a better world. We want a better outcome for people, ordinary people. And that's what I tell all my friends. I got to vote for President Trump, and I explained to them that virtue, that we want a better world, and that we needed something different. We couldn't go on with what was going on, essentially, all of our lives. They weren't changing anything. The condescending candidates would have continued going on for another 50 years. And quite frankly, I think that would be the devil winning at that point, because the devil's end game in all this, greed hell, that's what it is. The world of greed hell is the devil's world. We are in it. Welcome to it. The end game for greed hell is death for all humanity. And I feel that had there not been an intervention by President Trump in 2016, that we would be so much closer to that end game now. To even pretend that we had 50 years is a joke. And there's a lot of lies that go around that. They'll have you saving for a future that's not guaranteed, taking from today and putting it away for a tomorrow that they're actively stealing from you. That's what greed hell does. Trickery, cunning, efforts to take love and destroy it, to take trust and destroy it, because those are the virtues of God. And we're not exactly without understanding of how God's world works. We might not always do it perfectly, and in the world of greed hell, it seems to flutter and have problems by people who are confused often. But in our homes, think about that. In our own homes. I'm sure you think of your home as a place of light where God exists. You have Jesus on your wall. You pray. And you love your family so much. You certainly don't let greed into your home to determine the things that will happen. Greed doesn't determine the chores, or if the floor is mopped, or if the dinner's cooked. Love determines that. And love is such a motivator. Love gets the job done. Love causes everything that happens to happen. And it starts at the home. And that's where we're promised a better life. But then once we get out of that home, all deals are off. Now it's just a wild, wild west greed hell. Every man for himself. And that's wrong. That's the devil's power. We should be doing the same love we do in our homes for our people. That's the unity force. Love is the unity force. If freedom itself ever intends to have a unity, remember, greed has unity too. The devil doesn't work without a unity, except for here's the difference. When greed has unity, it looks like Adolf Hitler. It looks like a dictator who doesn't give you a choice. It looks like how China is, a communism, who does not give you a choice. Xi Jinping does not give you a choice. You must follow the rules or you are ousted, period. That's what greed hell does, and that is greed hell's unity. However, love has a unity, and love's unity depends on love, on the force of love. It brings about unity. And so if freedom ever wants to have unity, then what must it rely upon? It can't do greed. If it does greed, then it has to do a dictatorship. That's how it works. I think you can see the logic in that, right? If America wants unity, real unity, that works together, focused on a common mission, fixing real problems for people who matter and have purpose and value in this world, then what must they do? They must become unified. Now, a lot of people, they lose faith in humanity and they say, well, let's force them. Let's get a real dictator in there and let's make them do it. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of that kind of talk going on around right now. That's not the way God works. No. God allows for a way for freedom to have unity. You see, that's why China thinks that they're in the winning team, because they see themselves growing, they're unified, they have complete control over things. But I look at that and I say, your unity is so weak. You're forcing people who'd rather in some cases be dead, and then they are dying so fast. That's no life to live. But if you take freedom, which is also another derivative of God's kingdom of love, and you get it unified, then you have a powerful unity. And that unity, it wants to be unified, and it's working for a better world. It's many hundreds, if not thousands of times more powerful than an equal number of people otherwise unified in a world of greed hell. So, freedom needs a loving unity. And that's what AmericanMantics is. And we'll continue to pick up on those themes, because that's exactly what all this is about, serving God and knowing and realizing why we voted for President Trump, and to see our vision through. The Trump supporter, the honest, humble Trump supporter, this is what I am, this is what you are. We want to see the vision through. And a lot of people, they're feeling lost that our vision is off center. They have a hard time, they're struggling with it. And that's what AmericanMantics is. It's to settle all that, and it's to get millions of people going in the way of God and going in the way of love. And if we want to teach our neighbors and show them that we are right, we don't have to yell or scream at them. We just have to love them and tell them the truth. Folks, we'll see you next Friday. Get excited. It's going to be a great show. This is the Unchecked Greed series. It's a special gift, and I don't want you to miss it. Before I go, I'm just going to come on to the chat here, and what we'll do is see who's on, so I can do a couple of shout outs. It's always nice. Just gonna come on and so I just want to say hi to you guys, and also answer any questions, and for the things that we were talking about, and for anything else. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them now, because I am watching now. I'm looking at you guys. And I do want to say, Diane, how are you doing? And Cheryl, and Dolores, and Ginger, and John, and Marilyn, and you're all family to me. Dorothy, Jeannie, I'm not reading your last names on air, but you know who you are. Your HappyHealer loves you. And the truth is, we can make this dream happen. And guess what the beautiful thing about it all is, really? As soon as you know the difference and you're working on the ways that give you clarity and gives you that humble and honest belief, faith, well, then you've already received the largest aspect of the gift. And you live in a world of assurances that are provided by God and faith in one another, instead of assurances that are guided and backed by a world that would crush you in a moment. And to try to have faith in that, they don't see human value. They see money. If you have money, then you have some value. And how much value you have is directly correlated to how much money you have. I have a friend I don't think money should dictate your value. If you got $1 billion set aside, great. But I love you anyway, and I love you a lot because I love everybody a lot. And I love that guy over there. He's a bum. I mean, that's a word I don't even like using. But it tells you exactly what his predicament is. Some people might look at me and say, oh, the guy's living in a van. He's a bum. Doesn't matter to me. We have value. And all people have value and a purpose and a reason in this world to live. And that's the beautiful gift. And that's our starting point. Our finishing point is beating the devil down and beating this war for God that's taking place in this lifetime, where we all know we matter and have purpose and value. That is the end goal. But remember, it's a process, folks. And God, it's a powerful force. The greed hell can just master and run the whole world. And just an itty bitty amount of God's energy can take it all over. We just have to realize our power. We have to be humble enough to see it through with a heart that is inviting. And that's why I say humble. Because, man, this anger going around, I mean, people are ready to duke it out so quick. Calm down. We'll duke it out, sure, but let's have fun doing it the right way. All right, lovers, don't miss Friday. It'll be fun. God bless you, and good evening. This is AmericanMantics, by the way. Episode 4, next to be 5. We're going to be doing Unchecked Greed, 7 p.m. sharp, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, right here on AmericanMantics. Good night.